morning, dear very reverend fathers and fathers. I can see assistant parish priest here. Father, welcome. I feel honored to be in your midst. Yes, when I was asked to come and deliver this paper, I didn't hesitate because I am a secret admirer and imitator of Father Ohai. Even though I've not succeeded, I'm interested in his ascetical life and his life of integrity and holiness. And I keep asking you and all of you to help me realize my dream. So we are here. I am here to share my little reflection, which I titled The Need for Good Mental Health in Priestly Ministry. We shall go this way. Briefly trying to understand what mental health is all about, the characteristics of those with good mental health, and then reflecting on the consequences of poor mental health and the influences it has on pastoral ministry. And then we think of how to improve our mental health so that we shall be more effective in pastoral ministry. The immediate question will be, why do priests need good mental health? It is very simple, because they play a critical role in providing spiritual and emotional support to others. We see priests as second educators and parents. Our parents are our first teachers and formators. But soon, when we leave our parents, we get into the church. It is priests who teach us and carry us along about the faith. And so we believe that whatever priests say, absolutely that they are truth. That's why it is very necessary that priests have good mental health, because it helps them to coordinate and to lead the people of God very well. But then there's a lot of misconception about what mental health is all about. Usually, whenever you mention that word mental health, people's mind go to mental illness, mental disorder, psychiatric cases, etc., etc. But that's not what it is. So we begin by process of elimination, seeing what the antithesis of mental health. Mental health is not about, acting tough. Sometimes we get some of us who will try to act tough, as if to say that nothing is happening, as if to say that we are superhuman. So we do not classify those people as those who have mental health. It is not about ignoring one's emotions. It's not about pushing one's body beyond its elastic limit. That is, doing things that our body physically, emotionally, and psychologically cannot contain. And it's not also about proclaiming that one does not ever need another person's help. There are some personalities that always feel, I can do it alone. I can do it alone. Don't worry, I can make it. It doesn't portray somebody with a balanced mental health. When we talk about mental health, we mean that there's a kind of stability in a person's ability to control his emotions, thoughts, and actions. So, stability would imply that something is not likely to change. When we talk about stability, that something is not likely to move or change, or that a situation remains as it should be without any harmful changes. It doesn't mean that somebody cannot change. Any phone call, just one phone call we receive here may change our mood, isn't it? So that is to tell us that, the human person is never stable, because we are not machines. It's only machine that when you set machine, the machine may obey you. So, is the human person stable? No. And so that tells us that we may never have a stable mental health per se. We cannot say that mentally that I have a good mental health that is stable. But then we count by average. We may have a good mental health that is higher than average. It's like when you place it on a continuum from 0 to 10, 50, 80, and that gives you what we are talking about. So sometimes, just like in physical health, sometimes somebody may be sick, isn't it? And the person goes to hospital. Sometimes also, the person may not be hospitalized, but it doesn't mean that the person is sick. So, according to World Health Organization, mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities, very important, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Mental health is more than just the absence of mental disorders or disabilities. So when we talk about mental health, we do not intend mental disorders as when we talk about, schizophrenic, manic patients, bipolar, depressive patients. No. But then somebody may not be a schizophrenic patient, but the person has no good mental health. So it includes emotional, psychological, and social well-being, which affects how we think. How we think, there are some people that think in a distorted manner. If you have somebody now who hasn't good mental health, everything here has meaning. If a car passes, he said, hey, look at, check very well. So why is this car coming towards me, and not the other side? So already you have a kind of distortion in the thinking or in the thought pattern of this individual. But when this person has a realistic way of thinking and can harmonize it with how he or she expresses his emotions adaptively to the social circumstances, we can say that this person has good mental health. And so, it's also about how we make our life choices and interpret events. It affects our capacity to learn, to communicate, to form, sustain, and end relationships. It also influences our ability to cope with change, transition, and life events. Sometimes when you get some priests and religious during transfers or locations, that is another time of knowing those who are mentally stable. Because some people will mourn their location as if to say they are mourning their dead, because the thought pattern is not very straight, and so there must be reasons behind. Why is the Mother General changing me? Maybe because of this or that. Why is the Archbishop changing me? Maybe because of this or that. But when you get those who are mentally stable, they are realistic, they have capacity for introspection, the person may say, well, it could be that my competence is needed elsewhere. Something like that. So good mental health leads to developing a healthy personality style, while poor mental health leads to personality disorder. I'm sure we are conversant with some personality disorders, isn't it? And personality styles. If we take, for instance, when we talk about obsessive compulsive disorder, this is a disorder, or rather, let's take the style. If you get a sister who uses obsessive compulsive style, which means the healthy style, which means that this sister has good mental health. Now you get somebody who is very organized, she is neat, she can plan and execute, she's very orderly, she can share work and supervise, She can produce a lot. She's generous. She can share because she believes that when she shares, she can share her knowledge because she believes that sharing her knowledge does not diminish her knowledge as well. Now, when you turn the other side of the coin, you get obsessive compulsive disorder. When you get these people, they are not team players. They hoard a lot. Just like when you get an enneagramic number 5, they know a lot, very intelligent, but they cannot share because they believe, why should I share? If I share now, this person also knows what I know. And they grab a lot of work. They cannot share work. They are not team players. They will do everything because they don't have confidence. They are workaholic, yet they cry, I am dying of work. They don't have that capacity to share work and to supervise because they have cognitive rigidity. They don't believe that others can perform as they are doing. So when you have poor mental health, you are already going to the continuum of personality disorder. It could be obsessive compulsive disorder, it could be paranoid personality disorder, etc., etc. In the case of this obsessive compulsive disorder, they are time conscious. Something happened yesterday in our chapel and I stayed back and I was laughing. I said, oh, this person is really struggling with what I call shadows. In one of our convents where I passed the night last night, we were supposed to have 5:15 mass. And at 5:15 we gathered in the chapel and the priest didn't come. 5:30 there was no mass and the superior said, let us begin to pray a rosary. But before that, you could see individuals, sisters were praying, this person reading Bible, another praying rosary, and until 5:30, the superior said, can we pray a rosary in common? But I saw a sister so uncomfortable, she will look at her wristwatch, check the time, and do like, oh. But people were concentrating. And we were there. It was 5:45, no response. 6 o'clock, no response. Superior said, okay, you know what, sisters, we'll go to the parish for the mass. And this sister could not contain that because she has planned her life to follow from mass. 5:15 mass, I do this, I do that, I do that. And she kept grumbling, but why is it? Why what type of... She kept grumbling, but you see others were relaxed. So this is somebody that hasn't good mental health. That incident alone disorganized her. Whereas others could still carry on. Well, the priest was not there. Maybe something must have happened, but the world will not collapse. We carry on with other activities, even if it is also not possible to attend Holy Mass, the world will still not collapse. This is somebody that has good mental health. Remember that the thought pattern is straight, the emotions are okay, and the actions, these 3 things are harmonized. So let's quit those with good mental health. We shall look at it from the point of view of their attitude towards self and their attitudes towards one another, their attitudes towards God, and their attitudes towards reality. The first one, when you have those who have good mental health, in their attitude towards self, they have insight, what we call insight, openness and insight. This person has capacity for introspection. This person can reflect. This person has internal locus of control, which means she can sit down and reflect. Today, I went to work and I quarreled. So what happened? How did I contribute? How could I have done it better? Different from somebody who has external locus of control, who believes that everything comes from the external world. It is about they. They have done it to me. They. Well, when you are mentally stable, you can reflect and ask yourself some questions. How do I contribute to what is happening to me? So they have insight into their problems and they can seek for solutions. They can adaptively express their emotions and they have capacity to control their impulses. They are not carried away by their passions and desires and preferences. I was highly embarrassed when I attended a mass somewhere and the pastoral guide lost his temper and started flogging the mass servers. Flogging them. I said, oh my God, this real lack of impulse control. You could have kept it, whatever it is now, and then after the mass, you can flog them. So, something like that. And so, they have the ability to experience and tolerate especially intense feelings. Whether we like it or not, because of the challenges of our work, there are deep emotions, very intense emotions that sometimes come our ways. It needs deep maturity to contain them. If we are mentally stable, we shall contain them. And then they have intrinsic motivation. As children, our parents force us to have motivation. You know, while growing in the morning, your parents will force you, go and wash your school uniforms. I don't know why children don't like washing their school uniforms and washing plates and washing onubu. And your mom will flog you and talk and talk. Go for catechism. You know, they force us to have. But then as we grow up, we develop and sustain personal passion for what we do. When you see priests who have passion for the work of God, you know, it is very clear. It is very clear when you see people who have passion for what they do. So when you get people who have good mental health, they have passion in the priestly ministry. The other way around, you see some priests carrying the load of priesthood as if to say that, no, it's a heavy cross, a kind of man of sorrow, carrying this cross of priesthood and, looking for another Simon of Cyrene to help them carry that cross. But when you get, people who have passion with their exuberance, you will love, to come close them and they attract, of course, souls and vocation. And they have integrity. They have integrity. Integrity here, I simply mean they harmonize what they say with what they do. They harmonize what they say with what they do. It's not about preaching. It's not about preaching. But when you have people with good mental health, they harmonize what they say with what they do. That's integrity. And they have flexible pattern of thinking. They do not have delusions. Delusions will be, you can get somebody now who will say, this is not a bottle of, this is not water. The person may tell you, this is red oil. Now, there are two different things. Somebody may say, well, I know that this is drinking water. I know that this is drinking water, and I know that this is what, collectively, normatively, what we've decided to take as drinking water. But as a person, I would like to call it red oil. It is different than when somebody says, all I know is that this thing is red oil. Whether you people say it is water or not, prove to me this is red oil. So despite all evidences, now another person may open this water and drink it and say, can't you see that I'm drinking it? If it's red oil, I won't be drinking it. And the person still says, no, you are very wrong. This is red oil. This is when we begin to talk about delusion. Delusion. So, and how will it be when a pastoral minister is under delusion? Forcing the people of God to believe that this is red oil. And at the end of the day, now, we the people of God, I'm going to say, Mana Father, look, Mana Father, see the have red oil, And that is why, somebody like Saint Teresa of Avila will say, I need a spiritual guide who is intelligent and also spiritual. That is Saint Teresa of Avila. She doesn't believe in, whatever this priest says is good, because she is mentally stable. She has capacity for introspection. She prays very well. And she can reflect. And so she knows when this is and when it should not be. But when you are mentally stable, you have a flexible way of thinking such that you might be arguing that this is a red oil. And when evidences are provided, you can say, okay, sorry, so I was getting it wrong. Okay, it's okay. Good mental health. Poor mental health, despite all evidences, will say, I don't believe you people. Now, their attitudes towards others, they have capacity for affective love. That is those with good mental health, capacity for affective love, good relations with their peers, relations with authority. They have clear sense of identity and not people's pleasers. They know I am a sister and I am a priest, and my choice of being a sister eliminates other choices of life. And so they have that clear identity. They do not, waver. They know that they must not please everybody. And so they concentrate on doing what is right, in as much as it is right, and then pleases God. And of course, they have capacity for leadership. Now, when we talk of their attitudes toward reality, they have reality testing, which is intact. Reality testing, that is somebody that is real, somebody that has common sense, somebody that can perceive the world in a realistic manner, and not always perceiving the world and people in a distorted manner. Preaching and portraying the world as an evil place, so that we spend all our energies casting and binding. Always talking about the evil one, evil. So there's a distortion in the reality testing, and they lack common sense. That is, ability to make sound judgment based on objective assessments and realistic appraisals of persons and situations. All of us are in Nigeria now, and we know that things are very hard, isn't it? Somebody who has common sense will know that this is not a time for unnecessary extravagance. And so, somebody who has poor mental health does not think about this. This is a time when a few pastoral ministers, maybe he or she, might travel and 24 hours on Facebook. Sister Maureen Akabogu boarding to Dubai. Next second, Sister Maureen Akabogu boarding from Dubai to Japan. And I'm posting, Sister Maureen Akabogu from Japan to London. Sister Maureen, and I'm posting Facebook, because we want to be like others, isn't it? And I'm posting. At the end, I might add, well, it is my family sponsoring me or my friends sponsoring me. It's very easy now. Who are the friends? Oh, no, yeah, the friends. But sometimes we know the logistics, and when you give messy on the ground and then say, my friends are sponsoring me. But when you get somebody with balanced mental health, the person might say, this is a very time of austerity difficult? Must I make these travels? And even if I should, must I be posting it to aggravate the poor? Is there need for all those exhibitions? Why must people, won't I also have life of privacy? Why must people know that in the next second I will travel from Dubai to Germany? And now people will be grumbling, not there. Ebeka father Bosalafia, Ebeka sister Bosalafia. Is it not our money? It may not be their money anyway, of course we know now. We know. But then, that's where common sense comes in. The capacity to feel, to interpret what others feel given the situation in order to help them. Remember that when you have good mental health, you're able to put three things together. How you think. If you are thinking straight, you will fail for them because your thought patterns leads to your feelings. But if you are not thinking straight, you say, after all, does it concern them? Am I begging them for money? Is it not my friends who are paying? Yes, your friends are paying. But the next one is attitudes toward God. When you have those who have good mental health, they have faith in God. That's what our catechism tells us. So these people have faith in God and possess a deep sense of faith and the experience of God through Jesus Christ in the Spirit. And so they can engage in mental prayer. They can concentrate. They can meditate. They can pray. When you have those who lack good mental health, sometimes, I don't know, I have not read this anywhere, but I think that some of us are allergic to silence and solitude. Highly allergic to silence and solitude. That the priest will expose blessed sacrament, we make them to distract. When do we pray and tell God what we feel? When do we communicate to God? Yes, you expose, we dance, praise God, using harps and lutes and tambourines and things like that. Perfect. But again, when individuals assisi chukwu, Jesus, again, what's the time for that? But what we see today is a lot of noise. And it seems to me that some people, of course, there are some personalities that, as defense mechanism, they experience chronic emptiness. Like when you get a narcissist personality disorder, the defense mechanism is chronic emptiness. And so each time they look for something to fill the void, and they can afford to dance from morning till night. But then this is a faith journey now. If you are balanced, you will integrate all these things, knowing that there are many ways of killing a rat, isn't it? Hey, prayer is not all about jumping up and down now. It is not only praises, because even Jesus Christ sometimes withdrew to have solitude. So why can't we also have good moment of praises, and we give people of God that little time of reflection? Before I would that is Diego. I am sorry. Okay, so, but just to say that when you get those who are mentally stable, they know how to harmonize it because they have faith, and so they know how to pray. They're not afraid of solitude because they need to listen to themselves. They're not afraid of silence. They can pray and they can reflect. They can be alone. I entered this place and I told my driver, I said, hey, and when I look at the calibers of priests here, You see that it is people, yeah. And when the father was here, that's just my listing, you know. They have the ability to transcend their desires and wants and are capable of surrendering themselves to a power greater than themselves. They believe that they are not at the center. Christ is at the center. It's not about me, it's about Christ. And so they have that faith and they can surrender. They can strike a balance between excessive possessiveness and total detachment. Excessive possessiveness and total detachment. It's not that you detach everything, because you have to give yourself a sense of dignity, but at the same time, it's not that somebody will go and possess everything, and at the end of the day, we are elites, isn't it? And we justify that. A priest was quarreling with the family members over sharing land. There are 4 boys and they were sharing land, and this priest insisted, you must give me my own portion of land. And they said, but you are a priest. Say, but I have right to acquire. According to canon law, I have right to acquire. And the question will be, where is your charity? Suppose we all exact all our, rights. So that's what I mean here. To strike a balance between excessive possessiveness and total detachment, which means I take what I need and not what I want. Okay, so quickly we look at consequences of poor mental health. Poor mental health brings about psychological disorders. Psychological disorders are abnormalities of the mind which can result in persistent behavior patterns that can seriously affect a person's day-to-day life functioning. Like I shared earlier, the sister was disorganized because the mass was not, held at 5:15. And throughout the day, she was disorganized. I bet we didn't know if she raised the topic. But you didn't know why did. So, when you have these abnormalities of the mind, it affects your day-to-day life activities. And some of these disorders include, but are not limited to, mood disorders. You have some of us who suffer from major depression, bipolar disorder. You have eating disorders. You have some people who suffer from eating disorders, either anorexia nervosa, that is when somebody feels that he or she is too fat, and so the person will not be eating. See, sister, I'm getting fat. Get fat, not the quaka one. So it's a kind of psychological disorder, or in a situation whereby the person eats so much that the person becomes too fat and still eats and eats and eats. You have post-traumatic stress disorder, you have anxiety disorders, you have spiritual abuse. When you have poor mental health, it leads you to spiritual abuse and leads you to personality disorders. And in personality disorders, I'll just zero into paranoid. And of course, I'll talk a little about spiritual abuse, because this is one of the places where we see priests that are not mentally balanced. It doesn't mean that here upstairs is working very fine, but they are not harmonizing what they should harmonize. So it leads them to spiritual abuse. We know that according to Pope Francis, that spiritual abuse is a harmful control or coercion behavior in a spiritual context, which may give rise to ridiculing or insulting or degrading a person's religious or spiritual beliefs. And he spoke extensively about the use of spiritual truths or biblical texts or religious traditions to justify them. I want to concentrate here because this is seen more among Nigerian pastoral ministers. That is, the use of spiritual truths or biblical texts or religious traditions to justify harm or to manipulate people, brainwashing by parents, superiors, priests and confessors forcing people for conscience manifesto, invoking divine authority to manipulate people. You know, the society in which we are now, the West is, this theology of the here and now. And every leader, including myself, every leader wants to build and build, isn't it? So that by the time you are leaving, added to the already existing structures, St. Joseph's Hall, this one, this, they are very fine. But then, sometimes we overdo it, and it becomes a kind of spiritual abuse in our quest to get finance for all these things. There are a lot of things that when we do, there's a serious question mark. And in Igbo we say, na awakata is onye teacher ano. We give tikatazi yambu tikata onye wan tinechi. So no, as a way we begin to, do all this fundraising and this, and people will know that, excuse me, you are manipulating us. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. So that when we begin to use some text, playing on people's psyche by what we tell them, come and challenge God. Just come and challenge God and you will see it immediately. What did I say? I Chuku sign a contract, no challenge. I got miracle. A lady called me one day. Same sister, because can you lend me 10,000 naira? Hey! I shouted. They say, where do I get 10,000? Biko, I will refund after 2 months. I say, Amban, we do not lend or borrow. I don't have 10,000 naira. Miss will be paper me tell him, and say 10,000 naira that you are borrowing is about what? That she pledged 50,000 naira in the church. And the parish priest is threatening, if you don't pay, I will curse you, Mabunon. I will curse you. And then I asked her, but the deadline for this cursing is approaching. The deadline is approaching. Actually, she is my sister, my sister. And then I scolded her. I told her, you're a primary school teacher. So why did you pledge 50,000 naira? I said, I have 130 or 420. I said, I'm going to go until you sister, so I was preaching her and said, live within your income. And then she told me, now I'm an operation. The first mass after the operation, and the priest was saying, come and challenge God. Come and challenge God and see how God will do miracle immediately. She kept sitting down, and the priest said, those of you that are still sitting down, are you telling me that God has not done anything for you? You that has done operation and God delivered you. Suppose you died in the theater. And she got up. Sister, you will not understand. My father was torn on Nyakanagua. Simon won your operation. And she got up and pledged 50,000 naira. They say, I'm going to go and pay. 1 naira will not enter. And sometimes how we say these things, my dear, the concept of will of God, or there's a what? Because how some priests will be saying it as if to say Nahana Chuku sign a contract, as if to say that church is now ShopRite, that if you go with 1 million naira, you get goods of 1 million naira. It's not like that now. And now you promise somebody that come and challenge God, come and put. In fact, as you are doing it, miracle is following you upon. And we bring them to rally around the altar. In the Old Testament, it is Holy of Holies. And a general altar anyhow. Ndị ga-eme 1 million ngwa bịa nọ n'altar, eju n'altar ma ndị gba ọtọ ma ndị yi efu ọfụma ọ na-apịtọsị altar na-agba egwu na-were stone. These are unnecessary magical ideations that should not be associated with somebody who is mentally healthy. Because you don't need to come to that altar for miracle to happen. The centurion's servant speak Lord, anywhere where a miracle will still happen. Traditional life, going back to at all worship idols. And we have failed to sit down to reflect our own contributions. And I tell you, my own reflection is that we push them so hard. We push them to the wall. From one activities to the other. Bring money. It is the same people who bring. Everything. They keep bringing, and we threaten them. Use all these beautiful passages. If only you do now. Oh, blessed is he who give it, and the one who receive it. And if you give, God will keep blessing you. And they give with their whole heart. Going back to their shop, camera ko mebezie we can go to pledge 100,000. Loan a shop will never 1 naira. Now this person feels that the church has failed him, that the church is a scam. If I bring that, I will see the blessings of God. I'm going to tell that prayer means so police. Uwoye bele wolu stone we cross wolu chaso ko ma ku bie. See an miracle ya fu me. Yet one miracle me be. At the end of the day, this person feels depressed and feels that the church is a scam. And therefore we say, okay, achokonya na church we isi. Kan je sia choya no menana. It is high time the church, myself included, that we start reflecting on how we lead these people to that practice of neo-paganism. Okay, so let's quickly round up. How do we improve, the last topic, how do we improve our mental health? We have 3 major ways of improving our mental health: the spiritual care, psychological care, and self-care. I will not talk about spiritual care. All of you here are spiritual gurus. I will talk about the psychological care. Under psychological care, I would like to look at what I call reducing CATS. That is CATS. Acronym: reducing CATS. That is reducing caffeine, alcohol, tobacco, and sweetness. Many people take coffee, but not so much as you have many priests who take a lot of alcohol. They believe that alcohol helps them to relax, and but I tell you, alcohol gives you momentary euphorism, but with time it goes off and you'll suffer it. So we need to reduce intake of alcohol. It is becoming customary now that when you go for funerals or some of these things, you will see where a group of young priests will gather different forms of drinks. But discipline, that's where we need discipline. Life of asceticism, to discipline ourselves, because when you drink, you have loose tongue, and it leads you to other forms of life, different forms of abuses. And as the person gets older, the person loses the capacity for repression. As we are now very youthful, we can repress a lot of things. We can wear masks. I may be angry inside, but I may decide to smile, isn't it? But when I get older, these defenses will, crawl away. I will no longer have the capacity. And the small child, the inner child, the baby child comes out. Now, if you are drinking so much as a youth, be prepared for that in your old age. Or if I can buy out of ignorance, or that's only what is in the subconscious. The person has loose tongue or not, telling stories that you will not like to listen to. And then, of course, alcohol is detoxified by the liver and leaves the nerves in agitated states. It triggers more rather than soothes us and leads to anxiety. So, one of the ways to maintain our health, please take alcohol, the small quantity that is necessary, not so much as The second one is creating mind delays. Creating mind delays. Creating mind delays means that one makes a deliberate and free choice of limiting one's availability to answering phones, emails, etc., etc. A deliberate and free choice of limiting one's availabilities to all these social medias. It is very ugly when you see some priests, and I agreed in an happy phone, a man in a phone gate. A jiri phone, what to altar. When Father Piggy this year one day, or this year, Imago, Anyagasi, or say, sisters, phone and happy. I'm not reading my text messages, so I am only reading the word of God. Hi, George. Are you talking to babies? In Igbo we say, because we believe that this priest is another Christ. And when we keep this phone, it's not as if to say, no one game maybe. If somebody has called you while you were celebrating Mass, is it not a good reason? But you return those calls. At least so, creating mind delays. The society, the desire to achieve something in the here and now is on the increase. We want to get something now. Telephone seems to enslave some of us such that they are obsessed with checking and answering calls, even when nobody is calling them. To my greatest shock. In fact, that was the day I evaluated my faith. Okay, you better go. Hey, what is happening? Okay, I'll be there. I nearly got up. But it was as if to say that something, what came to my mind? You cannot. So, I knelt down. So after the confession, he gave me my penance. So now we're gonna convent on her them. Hey, I'm not father. Nuchi the chakwa ni come nuchi the chakwa. Come more can take confession on that mama. Yes. So I was battling, and then I shared with another sister in the convent. See, I feel like. No, you were talking to her. Even if Father Nasako, but have you forgotten that you are talking to God? You are not talking to the Father. You see your when I say, see, okay? But this kind, it can be discouraging. You understand? It can be discouraging. So, but if you are mentally healthy, you can tell yourself, one day maybe I can take these calls after I can return these calls, and nothing happens. So, it requires a great deal of psychic energy to discipline ourselves, to tell myself, I cannot come to the altar with my phone. Maybe. What is so special about that call? Let people know your schedule. And it doesn't mean that immediately somebody calls me that I must answer a busy Nuku phone. It is difficult in this part of the world because some of these demand delays would be, not mixing up your personal line with your office line, which is difficult here. Because outside the country, you have functional landlines, so you can afford to finish your work and then go back and continue with your handset. But it's difficult here, but we can still try. So, switching off phones so as to focus on your work, very difficult. Making meal times a no-call zone. Is it difficult? Is it possible? You may call some people, pick a call, so what have you achieved? You have achieved wasting the other person's credit, because you could have as well kept quiet. Mind they are aware that this is lunchtime, that I will call back later, or you call back later, or don't Zagon call. Let's say, wine on a table. I'll call you back later. You have made the unnecessary intellectualization and wasting people's resources. Because it is in eating and drinking that we discover ourselves. We bond more. We bond more while we eat. We ease off tensions and relax and chat and laugh. If I am eating and I'm with my phone, and this sister is with her phone, and this person now, eating becomes another form of work. The last one is self-care. When priests take care of themselves, they have good well-being with which they can cope with the stresses associated with their office. They can work productively and fruitfully. In the light of the vulnerabilities and risk factors common to priestly ministry, the challenging and stressful nature of their work, self-care is a priority. And self-care is a deliberate choice to furnish ourselves with people, places, things, events, and opportunities that recharge our personal battery and promote whole health, mind, and spirit. But remember, self-care is not about self-indulgence. It is not also a culture of hedonism that places, pleasure over everything. It's about pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. No. But it is essential because it helps us to prevent burnout, crisis, and some forms of distress. So it should not be considered as extra or nice to do if you have the time, but as an essential part of our professional identities. I urge you, my brothers, to put into practice all these ways of increasing our mental health, creating mind delays, self-care, psychological care, and spiritual care, so that we shall be more effective in the ministry. Thank you, fathers.
Talking about spiritual abuse, and you cited an instance where a priest responds, how they pray and tell people to do this and that. Oftentimes, spiritual abuse might something might be triggering that. Oftentimes, if people are under you, and you apply pressure on them to meet certain targets, be assured of certain abuses for them to please you or to meet a certain target. It may not be, and I assure you that those things that you call spiritual abuse will immediately disappear once those pressure from the person on top disappears. So that what we call spiritual abuses at times are what people invent temporarily to survive. Because I've seen priests who we thought were abusing or doing some other thing that are very negative, but immediately you saw them in another environment, you see that they are normal. I saw one who is now a lecturer in one of our institutions. You see him, each time he's laughing. You are no longer doing this, he'll be laughing. He will tell you that I did that to survive because I know. You see that? So that might be spiritual abuse, but there is something that is behind it. And that thing will disappear once that spiritual abuse will disappear. Once that thing that is engineering it disappears. Dr. Jesus Christ.
Let me clarify what he said.
Yeah, go Zulubana. I remember once I was chatting with, when I was in my one of the parishes I was chatting with a woman. So the woman was grading those of us who are priests, and it is actually go project Sunday. How they pray and tell people to do this and that. Oftentimes spiritual abuse might something might be triggering that. Oftentimes, if people are under you and you apply pressure on them to meet certain targets, be assured of certain abuses for them to please you or to meet a certain target. It may not be, and I assure you that those things that you call spiritual abuse will immediately disappear once those pressure from the person on top disappears. So that what we call spiritual abuses at times are what people invent temporarily to survive. Because I've seen priests who we thought were abusing or doing some other things that are very negative, but immediately you saw them in another environment, you see that they are normal. I saw one who is now a lecturer in one of our institutions. You see him, each time he's laughing. You are no longer doing this, he'll be laughing. He will tell you that I did that to survive because I know. You see that? So that might be spiritual abuse, but there is something that is behind it. And that thing will disappear once that spiritual abuse will disappear. Once that thing that is engineering it disappears. Dr. Jesus Christ.
Let me clarify what he said.
Yeah, go Zulubana. I remember once I was chatting with, when I was in my one of the parishes I was chatting with a woman. So the woman was grading those of us who are priests, and it is actually go project Sunday. All of them was in on young so, and it was actually, she was saying Nonya and the matter of man. And then those of us, some of us see Obosi were not Madam for the whom we found. I have expert in on our back age. So what's in he called one priest to extra orthodox. It is work. Yeah, if you need mental health from that perspective, I see no one can complete that kind of thing. We know we shouldn't dance to our people's whims and caprices. We know that, but okay, let me flip it also the other way around. I remember once somebody came to the church and he saw that I was the person doing adoration, and he said, okay, I see going on adoration and that person really went adoration. Nobody got a can as a book about there. Let's have a very officer. So now. So if everything you said, sis, is very correct, but how do we really contextualize these things within the situation of our for realistic? Because you know now institution, university, now chaplaincy, more now secretariat, you know, any equivalent on that talk. Money better within the locus, even if you can carry them out. Let me be plain. Okay. Thank you. Okay. What should we react?
Thank you very much. Let me begin from where Father Jude stopped. Personally, I strongly believe that the formation we all have in the seminary, Melanie, now I got the authentic in approaching life. Father Samson Obosi, I believe in one thing, that my being a priest is a call by a being called God. He sent me, directs me. The power I am using comes from Him. He does everything. My belief is when I do that which He calls me to do, I'm okay. I am talking about being authentic, doing what the Master tells us to do. We change in the Ainonina. And it is working for me. Like Father Jude, then Ebatazan Etitia. Ebatazan Etitia, Mbo Jesu, Walandena, where now Munegana Choggy. So no queer, Tinia no Lubumani. Ime yang Aguaragime, Indian Dam Yaguaragine. It will work in there. It will work in there. Like fathers, force. When I live my life because of non-way force, I may not be authentic. Even that force, when you are real, never force hard. The force will not kill you. The force will not destroy you. The force will not change your ground. Pressure cannot make me to be authentic in my personal life or in my life. Rather, I'm father, now lawyer. I am of 100% belief. Now souls, Chinekiti and Niha and Nime Oga Otia. So now, Eben Koneabona, when we move into the field with what the Lord gave us, Nene Ndagwa Enye, and Newton White Wenye, Ndaga Bekutoya, Macron High and Apofa, no Chukuchinek and Apofa. Like I don't go in here, when I was at Torco, let me do example. Bagoton, we will come out there in a one. Ereka in it, Bena. I bet you better buy a Chugo project. You got a get a one way you support a give with the give. After you got an arc, I'll get on your bed. And they understood it. We are following it, even up to today. We are taking us. So now from our reaction, some of our reaction and others, no. Now, but I feel no was it was make highway so bad. Now you for a Jude, also able not in my adoration. My name is your adoration, Guinean. Not saying I am your adoration. You are a good holy hour Guinean. Now, an nature in a hand. Man, I can't never in case we. I know in case we are met to an obi. Let me bring one. I went to Margaret Off. The very day I spoke about giving, about the Hamas. So now, we didn't consider to Akadenoka. We didn't consider to Akad. Yana mmadụ nwere ike inye nwa onyinye n'obi. Yana enwere ike isi gwa onye mara ihe etu o si emete n'obi ya bịa na-echukwu n'otu ụka na enwe a lot of happiness. So the song is about thank God that we are here. Thank God for the message. Thank God. Authenticity. No onye na-alụ ọrụ n'ime ndị fada bụ Chukwu na ọ bụrụ fada. Anyị were arị abanye n'ehori awa onye awa ka Yesu. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Father.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, fathers. The last speaker has spoken part of my mind. I can understand the situation, but nothing will ever justify spiritual abuse. You know, what came to my mind In the past, in the Western church, when you have many bishops and cardinals enjoying themselves and playing whatever they were playing, who would ever imagine that 50 years later, 60 years later, somebody will be held accountable of what he did in his 30s or 40s about sexual abuse? Nobody would have believed that. Maybe they would be saying, because of stress, emotional stress, I carried this girl, did this, because of when I finish here and go to another place, I'll stop doing it. Because those bishops and cardinals who were laicized, it doesn't mean that they were into it. It was one-off event for some of them. The same thing applies now. Spiritual abuse remains a serious act in the church. Today it may not be punishable, tomorrow it may be punishable. And nothing justifies spiritual abuse. It is a serious issue. The point is that there are a lot of competitions, but in the house of God, it should not be like that. There's a lot of competition. I want to do this because this parish priest has done this. Therefore, I will use every possible means, the much I can. Suppose I am asked to bring 1 million naira, and I have done all I could using every possible means, minus abuse, and raise 500,000 naira. I do not think that anybody who has asked me to get that 1 million will reject the 500 I have gotten. The person may not be very happy, but because you have done what you should do. So nothing justifies that. We need to start thinking of that, especially that of bringing people to the altar and doing all forms of awansi. And I say in a video tomorrow, these things or they are very simple. It is chaos. Yeah, unnecessary magics that human reason cannot comprehend, because we learn so many things from Pentecostals. A priest was boldly saying it. They talk with one pastor. I was saying in my mind, after your theology and philosophy, we took one in the acts of casting and binding of a pastor. We are not in the church for any magic. It is an eyesore. Certain things. I am personally convinced that the mother church does not approve that. Necessarily. Take for instance, Nana about Christmas. People just go behind Christmas. Bring a candle. Well, I can't catch the candle. Well, I can't catch what I sing when I wear. Those magic are unnecessary. Embassy sing what was here. Why don't you go straight and say, you cannot treat people as if to say that they are indecisive in the church, in the house of God. Oh, yeah, you waste unnecessary time. Because let us have feelings for the people of God. Let us have feelings. They will bring that money, but it will see me matter has a lot. No bishop, no cardinal, not even the Pope will approve spiritual abuse. If it's not mended, if it's not broken, it's not mended. People are shouting. Hey, Father, you are the wonderful one. Someday, at some point, French Revolution, all of us here are elites, and we know the history. What led to French Revolution? When Nigerian Revolution bido, most priests will not go free. Because and that you have records. Just like in the mere abuse, shame will cover her face. So it is high time now to do the right thing. As he said, our seminary formation formed us very well to do the right thing. Even when I'm the only person doing it, I do the correct thing. I attended the mass one day. A priest, I be around doing consecration. Oh, what retreat in this system anyway. maybe of course I'm not I'm not a concelebrant. I will not go. Through him, I will not go. I must see and some sisters joined me. These people who refuse, I said, all of you must come to the altar. I hold hands, say, I will not come to the altar. I will not come because I'm not a priest. I'm not concelebrating with you. Can you go back and look, it is part of low self-esteem when we do not believe that what we have is very good. And we continue to stretch our neck that there's a greener pasture over the fence, copying the Pentecostals. All the Pentecostals can have all those amansi. But we copy them and we bring them in because we are no longer fulfilled. Or I can instead, if I cannot copy from us, I now want you to go on because now we believe that in the Catholic Church consists the fullness of the of holiness and whatever. You know that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sister. Thank you so very much. Nothing justifies spiritual abuse. Maybe don't go with apology because I came in late. But after now, if it revolves around spiritual abuse, and never Africally upon liturgy. So, and they could go make a seminary formation as well. I agree with people na seminary formation they train I to be authentic. There is no two ways about it. It all depends to give us where fear. Because now actually formation, I prefer formators name. Formation prefer the candidate himself and the Holy Spirit. If they can even at times they normally talk about auto formation, but not before the times. I always try to correct that. If the times we find about pilgrimage formation, in the sense that the formators are there. Yeah, but to give Nigeria and if they are elder brothers, they are like tour guides, and they look go. So they are now living with these younger brothers in order to do what? To help them find the right way. God we are here, you are there. It was sitting at some seminary. So the seminary formation, they're very, very good. No. On your form, fear. Or fears, no, maybe tendencies for the person to withdraw. Then again, the priesthood, which but let us not always forget. Now, the priesthood will give not to us as individuals, but to the church. And then the church gives, well, say gift for Megani. Nyegi as a person, Archbishop Nagani Equia was ordination. Nyegi as a person, Kijide na foka. In other words, how then do you worship? How then by listening to what the church herself is saying and what the church does, because that liturgy belongs to the church and not to you. So you don't have any right to mutilate it. Because if you read the history of the liturgy, gradual development to Eba in Okita, and move on again for different day father and a mamu and atom. Because my name is why? If you read the history, especially around the Middle Ages, if only na, then must be okay, experience ni enough before Megani or arrive where born Okita. This is a church of more than 2,000 years experience. If you execute any now once I'll give you an example. Mbane made the second synod of the Archdiocese. Mbolu prepared the document on healing ministry. Father Anthony Chidozeo Anyine Maria, Boya the secretary. Oh, wait for me, just the catechism of the Catholic Church. Ijaba go from the church as a even in I was thinking your body for an mother is in a John Morgie. Then we process. In case he make a good shot now. On your little near for. Or my bona go or then we hallucination. Then you have to remove every psychological test. Not Beji Mecha see Fenina. we perceive any we can is not possible, no, we can be possessed by. So he was, because if I not going to theology, it is there in the catechism. So the basic problem both for when it comes to Ifai Neme and when it comes to the liturgy book, we don't ask the question why. We always ask the question how. Upon how are they important, but how the secondary. Because the Ifai Babi why you kaji megeni me fa etua. Because it was the question why, then you capture the theology behind it. Why okaji me etua? Then the how now follows. But not only emphasize the how only. Then the tendency when we cannot katazia how one made you for. You begin to try. Invent thing. Man, one priest on the church diocese what's in that sensations do not last. Because now the priesthood belongs to the church. So and mind you, Mass be very simple to celebrate, but not very difficult at the same time. I always tell people, all I look at this, mother second year 4 masses on Sunday, and I mean any. Makana kebe isoku na Ecuador mass of Fuma can keys. Ijisike Kasia and Kebo, Araya Forog. All the simple, not very stressful. And if you this stressful, if you take time to prepare the homily. Because other parts of the mass we just recite, and which are you must have to prepare also, because somebody needed the readings, whether your team for the Sunday, then you need the prefaces. Oh, you're going to fit that team. If not, you use preface number 1 for Sunday, which captures practically everything. So be a chikwado chisifeli na we be kuchukua so that na what actually na ekueku na watabago ifane eku ya what ifane eku nwa ina lose na lawyer no na unoka ya watasifeli na eku. It will take a lot from you. So I did it very easy. So from why marriage na invent it already na something this stressful. Make inventing it doesn't help. Move for them mothers know we are helping the faith of our people. We are simply destroying the faith of our people. If we can cross over night, before that I wonder why name of vigil for Mary, Mother of Christ. Why name of vigil for it? The church, unfortunately, the church in Nigeria, the mass, and took to Vatican. Vatican Belfire approved. Vatican were referred to a document put out some years back. And it's surprising nobody knew about it, which was a bit discussed the relationship between the liturgy and pious devotion. And one of the numbers there captured that situation. Now, why is it that the church is not emphasizing that crossover? I can't lecture, sorry, but because we need to capture a couple of things. If what you read in that crossover night, even in the United States and in here. But the point remains that now remember for the church, the calendar in Kiev with the liturgical year, which begins on the first Sunday of Advent. So when it comes to the calendar year of the society, open that the church you believe yourself. It's not that the reading say choosing, but this is how you do what? You bless the people at the beginning of the year. But nobody has the emphasis for the church because now her own calendar beginning the liturgical year. So nobody in the crossover and equal senior na the Saturday before the first Sunday of Guinea. And so why the church be already play down a couple of things and then but it comes down to the question of why and not just how. Thank you.